Okay, guys, the draw for the 2025 French Open has just been released. I have looked at it for a few minutes, and I don't really need to look longer because I believe that there are only four players who are in contention for the title this year. I am 95% sure that the champion will be one of these four players, and I am 90% sure that the champion will be one of my top two favorites. So I will give you my top four favorites and the only people whom I really believe can actually win the tournament. And I will start with my fourth favorite. My fourth favorite is a player who has won this tournament. That narrows it down to, I believe, three players in the draw. He has won this tournament three times, and he has won 24 Grand Slam titles. By now, you know that the player I am referring to is Novak Djokovic. Novak Djokovic is my fourth favorite to win the French Open this year. Some people may be writing him off because he did not have the greatest clay season. That is true. But he has now found a bit of form here in Geneva, the tournament that is a small tournament that is going on right now, and he looks to be the favorite to win that tournament, has a very favorable path ahead of him. Only needs to win two more matches against players that he is heavily favored against. But still, that is not the most impressive clay court season overall, because apart from that, he has done absolutely nothing. Like, quite literally nothing at all. He has not won a single match on clay apart from in Geneva. So, because of that, and because of his advanced age, many people may be writing him off. So, I am not saying that he will win the tournament, guys. And I'm not having him as my number one favorite, but I cannot write him off. I cannot say that he has no chance to win the tournament. Do I think that he will win the tournament? Not really. Do I want him to? Yes, of course, because I am a fan, and I want him to win basically everything. But I'm less upset now when he loses because he has already finished as the greatest of all time. But do I want him to win? Of course. Will I predict him to win? No, but I still have him as my fourth favorite to win, and I still believe he has better chances to win than 90% of the players in the draw. And that is because he's the greatest player of all time. And he has won this tournament three times and won 24 Grand Slams. So, with those kind of numbers, I just feel like you can never really completely write the guy off. You can't say that he can't win it because he has proven that he can. So, there is always going to be, at least as long as he is in the draw, there is always going to be some chance that he is able to win it. So he will not be the top favorite, but I cannot completely write him off, judging by the fact that he has won the tournament multiple times and is the greatest player of all time. So I will have him as my fourth favorite. And I think he has actually got a pretty decent draw here. In the first round, he can face McDonald. He should not lose to McDonald. McDonald has never done anything. McDonald has not done much in his career. He has never won a title and never reached the quarterfinals of a slam. His biggest achievement maybe was defeating Rafael Nadal in the Australian Open in 2023, where Nadal was in terrible form and arguably injured. So that was probably his biggest achievement. But apart from that, he has not really done anything particularly notable. And Djokovic losing in the first round of a Grand Slam, that is basically unheard of. So he should not have too much trouble with McDonald. McDonald is also an American, so by default he is not a clay court player. Then in the second round he can face Corentin Moutet, the Frenchman, who is tricky, but he is not really a player on Djokovic's caliber. And I know it is in France, but still, Moutet doesn't really have weapons to trouble Djokovic. Even when Djokovic was terrible last year in Rome, he still defeated Moutet fairly easily. So Mute should not be too much trouble either in the second round. If Mute is there, it will be either Mute or it will be a qualifier or a lucky loser. Djokovic losing to a qualifier or a lucky loser at a slam is still pretty unheard of, even though he's 38. I know he lost. His last bad loss in a Grand Slam was to Alexei Popyrin in the US Open last year. But Alexei Popyrin was at least a seeded player who had just won a Masters tournament and was in the form of his life. So that is still a bit different from losing to some random qualifier or lucky loser at a Grand Slam. So Djokovic should not lose in the first two rounds. Then in the third round, he can face Shapovalov, if Shapovalov even makes it that far, because clay is not his best surface, even though he has beaten Nadal on clay. He doesn't have great results at the French Open. That is his worst Grand Slam. He has never made it past the fourth round. But he has made the third round the past 2 years, so maybe he can make the third round again. He's facing a clay specialist, Pedro Martinez, in the first round, so he is not guaranteed to come through that match. So Djokovic can face Shapovalov or he can face Martinez. That shouldn't be too hard because again, Shapovalov is not really a clay player, and Martinez, he doesn't really have. While he is a specialist, he doesn't really have weapons. So that should be a pretty manageable third round for Djokovic as well. And then in the fourth round, he can face Daniil Medvedev if Medvedev makes it to the fourth round, which is not a guarantee because clay is Medvedev's worst surface. Historically, he has been pretty bad at the French Open, though he has gotten better in the past few years. He has also had some early exits, and clay is always going to be his worst surface. So that's if Medvedev makes it that far, or maybe he can face Humbert, another Frenchman, but Humbert is also pretty bad on clay. He's more of a fast indoor hardcourt type player. So there's even Wawrinka, but Wawrinka is not known for winning 2 matches in a row nowadays. So he can really face anyone from this top section of Djokovic's eighth, if you call it. Kovacevic, Ruusuvuori, Fernley, O'Connell. So those guys shouldn't really be too much of a threat to Djokovic in the fourth round. So getting to quarterfinals should be pretty manageable for him. And then in the quarterfinals, that's where it gets a bit tricky. He can maybe face Zverev, who just defeated him in the Australian Open. But Zverev has been pretty bad since then. So we don't even know if Zverev is going to actually make it that far, just judging by his form in the clay season here. And he just lost to Muller, who is basically a pusher. He just lost to him in Hamburg. So that's a bit of a question mark with Zverev there. And even if he makes it that far, that is not the worst. If he somehow makes it that far, that is not the worst quarterfinal that Djokovic could ask for. Because if Zverev makes it that far, he can maybe scrape by without suddenly getting back to his top form. So that is actually a pretty manageable fourth round. Or he can face Dimitrov. And Djokovic, he owns Dimitrov. His head-to-head is like 11-1 or something like that. Then he has Cerundolo, who maybe Cerundolo can face the fourth round if he reached quarterfinals to face Djokovic. He actually played Djokovic in the fourth round last year, and he lost to Djokovic in 5 sets. So maybe that can be tricky. That can maybe be Djokovic's first real test in the quarterfinals there. But Cerundolo is a choker, so I won't really count on him. Even though he's a solid clay court player, he has proven himself to be a choker, especially in matches against mentally strong top players. So if Cerundolo makes that quarterfinals, I won't count on him to defeat Djokovic because he's just really mentally weak. He chokes on the big points. So that can be a pretty manageable quarterfinals for Djokovic. The semifinals is where it gets difficult because then he will most likely be facing Jannik Sinner. And in that match, he will not be favored to win. It is possible, but he will not be the favorite. against the number one Jannik Sinner, who has won 3 times in a row against him. Granted, they have not faced on clay since, I believe, their first meeting in 2021, before Sinner became a beast, and Djokovic won that in straight sets. So they have not faced on clay in a very long time. They have faced on hard courts, which Sinner has become near unbeatable on. So it is perhaps more manageable for Djokovic to defeat Sinner on clay than on hard courts at this stage. But that is still not going to be an easy match, and he will not be the favorite going into that if they both make it that far. So that is where it will get rather difficult at the semifinals. And if he wins that, he will most likely be facing Alcaraz in the final. So that, again, this is why it is, in addition to age, this is why it's so difficult for Djokovic to win a slam nowadays. He is having to go through Sinner and then Alcaraz. That is just like at the Australian Open this year. He had to go, if he were to win the Australian Open this year, he would have had to go through Alcaraz, Zverev, and then Sinner. He got past the first one, he got through Alcaraz, but then he couldn't get past Zverev because he got injured and he had to retire against Zverev. But even if he got past Zverev, which actually he may have done, given that he was playing better than Zverev going into that match, even if he got past it, he would have then had to defeat Sinner in the final. So it is not easy to defeat the top 3 players in the world back-to-back for anyone, and especially not when you are more than 10 years older than all of them, and you are 38 years old. That is insanely difficult. So this is why it is extremely difficult for Djokovic to win a slam at this age. Because he is having to go, just the way that the draw is set up, since he is not in the top 4 anymore, he's having to go through Alcaraz, Zverev, and Sinner back-to-back. He was having to go through all 3 of those. And that is very difficult for anybody. And even more when you're 38 years old. So that's where it gets rather difficult, going through all 3 of those guys. And especially going through Alcaraz, or going through Sinner in this case, and then going through Alcaraz in the final. That is an extremely difficult path, basically as difficult as it can get. So Djokovic would have to hope that one or all of these guys gets knocked out, but they are all the favorites to go to those later stages. Except for, technically Zverev is still the favorite to go to the quarterfinals, but he is a bit more of a question mark. Sinner and Alcaraz, more people are expecting them to go to the semifinals. So Djokovic will hope that they get knocked out somewhere along the way, but they are the heavy favorite to make it to that stage, so that is not looking too likely. Even though people are saying that Sinner has a very difficult draw, I don't think that it will actually be that difficult. I think that he can handle it. So Djokovic is my 4th favorite to reach that semifinal, to win the title. And maybe he can reach that semifinal against Sinner, where he will not be the favorite. My 3rd favorite to win the title is a player that not many people may think of as one of the main favorites, or maybe one of the top 4 favorites. He has never won a Grand Slam, but he has won a big title before in Paris. And the player I'm talking about is Holger Rune, who is the 10th seed in this tournament. And I know some people are probably going to be laughing at me right now, because, Rune, he's not consistent, he's never won a slam. Yes, I'm aware of all these things, and Rune has not won a slam, he has not been to the semifinals of a slam. Yes, I know that, okay? But I still think that he has better chances to win than most of the players in this draw. And I like his draw. I think his draw is actually not bad. And he is not bad at the French Open. He has been to 2 quarterfinals. I think he lost to Casper Ruud in both of them. So he's not bad at the French Open. Ruud has reached the French Open final 2 times. So Rune has not been bad has not really been bad at the French Open. And he is still pretty young. That's why I still think that he has a chance to win a slam. Most of these players, they will never win a slam. Players like Draper, yeah, get mad at me, who people think will win a slam. Tsitsipas, who people were hyping after Dubai, and then he went back to losing over and over. He will never win a slam. Musetti will never win a slam. I feel like Holger Rune has more of a chances. He has more tools. He has that dog in him a bit more potentially. So I think he has better chances to win a slam than many of the players that even people think will win a slam. Zverev will never win a slam, of course. Rune has better chances to win a slam than a lot of these people, actually. Even though he's not the most consistent at this moment. He's still pretty young. He's the same age as Alcaraz. And again, I like his draw. I think his draw is actually pretty decent. He has Bautista Agut in the first round. Bautista Agut is a super old guy, and he is not a clay specialist, even though he's a Spaniard. He's actually not that great on clay. So that shouldn't be too hard for Rune. Then he can face Nava, a wild card, or Van de Zandschulp. Rune has beaten Van de Zandschulp multiple times. Van de Zandschulp has never beaten him, even though he choked miserably in that final a while ago. But Rune has still beaten him every time. Nava is just a wild card, an American, so he can't be that good on clay. Then he can face in the third round Baez if Baez gets that far. But Baez, even though he's a clay specialist, he's like a South American clay specialist, because in all the big clay events he just flops immediately for some reason. It's very strange. So Baez might not even be in the third round. Kecmanovic is pretty manageable on clay. Alice, not the best clay court player. Mahac, that guy retires like every other match, so should be a pretty manageable third round for Rune as well. Then in the fourth round, it can get maybe a bit tricky, because it can be Lorenzo Musetti is favored to go to that fourth round, and Musetti has had a fantastic clay court season. But Rune is also 2-0 against him. So I think that Rune can actually win that match against Musetti. They've never played on clay, but I think that will be winnable for Rune, because that will be an interesting match against two very skilled players. But I don't think. I think that is actually fairly winnable for Rune to defeat Musetti. Nakashima is the boogeyman for Rune that he will want to avoid. He really hates playing Nakashima for some reason. Nakashima is 4-0 against Rune. But Nakashima will probably not be in that fourth round, because he's an American and he's not that great on clay. He is facing a clay specialist in the first round. He may not even come through that match. And even if he does, Musetti will probably be in the third round. So I don't think that Nakashima will even make it to that fourth round. So Rune should not have to worry about that. So his biggest test will be Musetti in the fourth round, most likely. But I think that is actually pretty winnable for Rune. And then in the quarterfinals, he has a very doable match, because this section 6 is basically the joke section. Is Taylor Fritz's 8th. This is like the joke section of the draw, where they tossed like the 4 of the top Americans into the same 8th, and they're like, oh, here you go, guys, have fun on the clay. And Fritz is the highest ranked player in that draw. And this is like a freaking 250 draw. So I have no clue whatsoever who's going to come out of that. I mean, Fritz is the favorite by ranking, but he is Fritz. Like, come on, guys, he's Fritz, and it's on clay. So he can come out there, but if he does come out there, that shouldn't be too difficult for Rune to defeat Fritz on clay. If not, it can be maybe, I don't know, because none of these guys are like none of these guys are actually like really good clay players. Well, okay, some of them are, but not like big threats. Like, who is a clay specialist from this draw? Comesaña. Maybe Comesaña, if he reaches the quarterfinals, That is actually very possible from this draw for Komasanya. And that could be tricky against Rune, actually. If Komasanya reaches that quarterfinal, Rune, that will not be the easiest match, but Rune just beat him in Roma, I believe. But that was a very difficult match. So that can actually be a bit of a threat there. That can be interesting if Komasanya gets that far. Besides that, the other guy may be Dardari. But Dardari is not... He's good, but I don't know. I feel like he's not that great. But maybe he can also... Maybe he could reach that quarterfinal. But if he faces Komasanya in the third round, I will favor Komasanya. So Komasanya is actually looking like the best clay player from that section. So if he reaches that quarterfinal against Rune, that can be a bit tricky for Rune. But that is still winnable. I mean, Komasanya is not the most experienced opponent. So if Rune wins that, he will be in the semifinals, and that's where, again, it will get tricky because that will 90% chance it will be against Alcaraz. And that will be very difficult. Obviously. But Rune, he has a chance, I will say, because he just showed us that he could defeat Alcaraz in Barcelona, a match that I predicted he would win in straight sets, which he did, by the way, because he was peaking in the tournament. When he plays his top level, he can be very good enough to beat Alcaraz in a final in Spain on clay. That is no small feat. So, and he just did that. So he will have some confidence going into that match. So there's a chance that he can beat Alcaraz, but I will still favor Alcaraz in a best of 5 scenario in Roland Garros. But I think that Rune can actually make the semifinals here. That seems possible. So my third favorite will be Holger Rune. And people are probably laughing. And why do I have him above Djokovic? Look, it is close, but maybe because of the age, I just put Rune higher than Djokovic. And in terms of favorites, Djokovic has a bit of a tougher path from the quarterfinals. I would actually not really, because Rune would still have to go through Alcaraz and Sinner, and Komasanya or whoever in the quarterfinals is not really much easier than Zverev necessarily, if Zverev even gets that far. So actually it's not really that much easier of a draw than Djokovic, if it is easier. But yeah, I feel like I was kind of comparing Rune's chances against Alcaraz in the semifinal and Djokovic's chances against Sinner, and I just gave my slight edge to Rune defeating Alcaraz just because of the fact that he's younger and he just defeated him in a clay final, and Djokovic has not defeated Sinner since 2023. So I feel like I just felt like Rune had a bit better chances to beat Alcaraz than Djokovic beating Sinner, but that can be close. So that is pretty close. So those third and fourth favorites there, they're pretty close in terms of how confident I am of either of them lifting the title. But now for the top 2 favorites, and I am 90% sure that the champion will be one of these two main favorites. And it's pretty obvious who these 2 favorites are. They're basically the same for every serious analyst or serious, semi-serious fan who is going to be watching the French Open. These top 2 favorites are basically the same for literally everybody. And of course, the second favorite is Jannik Sinner, the top seed. So Jannik Sinner, people were complaining that he had a tough draw, but it's not really that bad. Like, let's be honest, guys. And he's Sinner, so he's not gonna just like bend over to these guys. Like, I really don't think so. In the first round, he faces Rinderknecht, the French guy. Yeah, Frenchman in France, but Rinderknecht has not done anything in his career. He's never won a single title. So Sinner will not lose to him. Then in the second round, he will face a French wildcard. It will be either Atmane, a player who I've barely heard of, or it will be Gasquet, who is retiring in this tournament and playing the last tournament of his professional career. So Sinner's not going to lose to a wild card, to an unknown wild card, or a retired player in the second round. Let's be real here. He's not losing to Gasquet or Atmane. And then in the third round, they have maybe Davidovich Fokina, and people are like, oh, that's tough, a solid player. Yeah, Davidovich Fokina is a solid clay court player, but what else is he? That's right, he is a choker. So will he have the mental strength to defeat Sinner, who is a mental beast? No, he will not. He can't. He hasn't even been able to win a single title. So even though he is solid on clay, his mental strength is just not enough to beat a player like Sinner. So Sinner will be in that fourth round. And in the fourth round, he can face most likely Fils. Fils or maybe Rublev. But Rublev will have a hard time getting past Fils most likely. I don't think he will lose to Fils. Fils is also a bit of a choker himself, so I really don't think that Fils is that big of a threat. They faced once, but that was like a really long time ago in an indoor hard court, so that doesn't really matter. But I don't think Fils will be too big of a threat as people are expecting, because all he knows how to do is basically just hit the ball hard. And Sinner knows how to do that, but also without choking. So I will favor Sinner in that matchup. So Sinner will be in that quarterfinal for sure. And then who is he going to face? Draper, de Minaur, Mensik, Hurkacz. Like, those guys aren't going to take him out. Draper on clay, if Draper gets that far. Draper, yeah, he's looked actually not bad on clay, but I don't think that he will be so good to defeat Sinner now. And Draper, his stamina can also still be an issue in best of 5. He can end up going into these long 5-set matches and just retire. De Minaur, I don't even have to say anything about that. Sinner will execute him if de Minaur is unfortunate enough to make it to that quarterfinal. And who else from this section is going to defeat Sinner? I mean, Draper would be the best chance to defeat Sinner, but I will not favor Draper against Sinner on clay. Absolutely not. Or probably on any surface, maybe. I mean, yeah, like, his stamina is still an issue. He's not yet on the same caliber as Sinner, especially in Grand Slam level. Then in the semifinal, he can probably face Djokovic, or I don't know, Djokovic or whoever wins, Zverev, if Zverev decides to play well again, or if Djokovic loses someone there. But Djokovic will be the projected semifinal, we'll say. So that's where it gets a bit difficult. But I will still favor Sinner in that matchup. He has won the last 3 times against Djokovic, and Djokovic is super old, and this is a demanding surface. Sinner is in his prime, so Sinner will be the favorite in that semifinal. Then the final will be the biggest test, because the final will most likely be against Alcaraz, and that will be very difficult, because as we saw, Alcaraz defeated him in Roma, and that was a pretty dominant second set from Alcaraz, who has now won 4 times in a row against Sinner, and also defeated him in the French Open semifinals last year. So that was a very close match in 5 sets. But Alcaraz will be the favorite going into that final against Sinner. So that's where it will be the biggest test of all for Sinner. And the number one favorite for this year's French Open, of course, I said it before the year even began, it will be Carlos Alcaraz. Carlos Alcaraz will be everyone's favorite for this tournament. He absolutely will. Only a clown will say that Alcaraz is not the top favorite for this French Open. And I already saw a clown in this tennis group chat I'm in. Not a guy in the group chat, but he was sharing something from a guy who was making a prediction about the French Open. Because he saw that Alcaraz was playing Kei Nishikori in the first round. And he's like, oh, if you actually watched Challengers, you saw that Kei has been picking up some steam. And I put my money on Kei in 4. Oh, man, these idiots make me laugh. I don't know how much money that guy put on, but he's going to have a good time losing it. Because Kei Nishikori is not going to defeat Alcaraz in the first round of the French Open. Kei Nishikori, he just retired against Khachanov in Geneva. Like, that was literally like 2 days ago. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. Like, he has been winning on the Challenger Tour. So yeah, I'm sure that he's been winning on the Challenger Tour. So I'm sure that he's going to defeat Alcaraz at the French Open now. That's the logical next step. So yeah, he's not losing to Kenny Nishikori. Then the second round against Marochan or Nardi, that can actually be a bit tricky for Alcaraz, but I don't think Alcaraz will lose in the second round of the French Open over best of 5 sets, even though Marochan has beaten him on clay once before. This is a different story in best of 5. Then in the third round, there's no one there that's going to do anything. Petchi Pericard, who has been terrible this year, the serve bot, if he even gets that far, he only has a serve. That's not going to be nearly enough against Alcaraz, especially on the surface. Bergs has never really done much in his career. Qualifier or Zumher, who is old and doesn't have power. Alcaraz will not lose in the third round. In the fourth round, he will face maybe Tsitsipas as the most likely to come out of that. Shelton is the highest seed there, but Shelton he's not a clay court player, let's be honest. And if he does get there, Alcaraz will not lose to Shelton, especially not on clay. And Alcaraz will not lose to Tsitsipas anywhere. He is like 6-0, 5-0, or 6-0 against him, and he defeated him at the French Open in the past 2 years in straight sets. So the result will likely be the same if and when Tsitsipas gets to that fourth round, if he even does, because who even knows with Tsitsipas nowadays. So Alcaraz will not lose before the quarterfinals. Then in the quarterfinals, he can face maybe Casper Ruud is looking the most likely to reach the quarterfinals, but Alcaraz owns Casper Ruud. I don't think he has ever lost against Ruud a single time. So Ruud doesn't. Oh, he has. Oh, right. He lost him in the ATP Finals last year in that weird match. But I don't think that Alcaraz will lose to Ruud in that quarterfinal. Ruud, he doesn't have really much that can trouble Alcaraz. So then in the semifinals, that's where it can get a bit tricky against Holger Rune, who defeated him in Barcelona. But of course, Alcaraz will still be favored again in that semifinal against Rune or whoever it is, Musetti. Definitely against Musetti. He owns Musetti. Rune will be the hardest possible semifinal opponent that he can most likely face. But he will still be the favorite against Rune, especially in best of 5, even though he just lost him in Barcelona. He will still be the favorite against Rune. And he will be the favorite in the final against most likely Sinner as well. We just saw what he did to him in Roma. So Alcaraz will be the top favorite to win this year's French Open, of course. And do I think that he will win it? Yes. That I predict that he will win the French Open again for the second year in a row and make it to 5 Grand Slams total. Do I want him to win? Absolutely not. I want Djokovic to win. That is my best case scenario. If Djokovic does not win, then I want anybody to win who is not Alcaraz or Sinner. If Alcaraz or Sinner win, then I want Alcaraz to win more than Sinner. I want Sinner to win the absolute least out of all of the players in the draw. But actually, between him and Alcaraz, it doesn't really matter much between him and Alcaraz winning it. It's about the same to me, actually. But I don't want Sinner to win the calendar slam. Absolutely not. Because that will be kind of messed up. But yes, I want Djokovic to win, but he is my 4th favorite. So again, my 4th favorite is Djokovic, my 3rd favorite is Rune, my 2nd favorite is Sinner, and my top favorite is Alcaraz. And the semifinals can maybe be Rune versus Alcaraz and Djokovic versus Sinner. Then the final most likely Alcaraz versus Sinner, and Alcaraz probably wins. So that is if everything goes according to plan. But as we all know, it never does. So we'll see what happens. But I am 95% sure that the champion will be either Alcaraz, Sinner, Rune, or Djokovic. And I am 90% sure that the champion will be either Alcaraz or Sinner. Do I want that to happen? Absolutely not. But that is my official prediction. I think that Alcaraz will win this year's French Open. If not him, then Sinner. If not him, then Rune. And if not him, then Djokovic. So I'm looking forward to this French Open, even though it's not really the most interesting because there's there's only 4 players who can win. So it's a bit interesting. It's slightly interesting because of Djokovic and Rune, but it's like 90% chance going to be Alcaraz or Sinner. So it's not really the most interesting tournament, but I'm still interested in all tournaments and all, especially all Grand Slam tournaments. So still looking forward to this one starting, and I'll see you guys soon because I'll be predicting the finals of the Geneva and Hamburg after this.